Today, I'm going to talk about what a niche is and how to choose one. How to choose one that is commercially viable for you, not commercially viable in general, because one person's commercially viable niche will not be the same as another's. And that's one of the beauties of the way that coaches need to market, is that we are no longer in competition with each other, because we all have our very own, very specific niche. So if I say to a coach, what is your niche? They either tell me they don't know, or they will tell me that they're an executive coach or a mindset coach or a change coach or a transformational coach, and that's the health and wellness coach, and that's their niche. And those are not niches. Those are job titles. And probably with the exception of executive coach and potentially health and wellness coach, they're quite meaningless job titles. Sometimes they're the name of a credential, but they are not niches, they're job titles. And what we've done there is we know there's confusion around the word coach, because everybody thinks they know what we do and they're wrong. And so we try to get rid of that confusion by adding another word at the beginning. And it doesn't get rid of the confusion, because they already think that we're going to teach them, or there's going to be an exchange of knowledge in our coaching, and that's not the case. So adding another word to like transformational or change or what have you to the word coach doesn't make it any clearer. And apart from anything else, aren't we all mindset coaches, change coaches, transformational coaches? Isn't that just what coaching is? Anyway, how the other thing that coaches will say when I say, what's your niche, is that they'll give me a what. What I call a what. They'll give me the topic around which they want to coach. So they might say to me, oh, my niche is people who are overwhelmed and anxious, or my niche is senior leaders managing transitions, or my niche is organizations who want to support their staff, or my niche, and they give me this kind of either a what or a really vague what. Organizations who want to help their staff is really quite vague. Now, a what is basically, it's the problem that your potential client is struggling with that you want to coach around. And some coaches will tell me that they don't want to choose a problem, because they like the variety of coaching. So there's like lots to unpack here, and I'm only going to talk for about 15 minutes. So number one, remember this: whatever the person is talking about in session 1 of a coaching package is very, very rarely the same thing they're talking about by session 3. So even if we had 10 apparently identical people with an apparently identical problem who become our clients this month, what we know as coaches on this side of the scales I was talking about on Saturday, on the delivery side of our scales, what we absolutely know is that they are all individual human beings, and they have their own beliefs and their own values and their own life experience and their own knowledge. And so there is no such thing as this cookie cutter coaching, which seems to be a reason why coaches resist the idea of choosing a niche. So an actual niche is made up of a what and a who. When I say an actual niche, what I mean is the way that we choose a financially viable niche, a commercial niche, is that we need a what and a who. Now, choosing, let me just take a step back. Niche is a target audience. A target audience and a niche, they are synonymous. Niching has nothing to do with your delivery. Niching just massively increases your opportunity to do that delivery, because the whole time that we're trying to talk to anybody who, or everybody who, literally nobody can hear us. It's so generic and so vague that people just scroll past. If we think about posting on LinkedIn, for example, if we are talking to anyone who could benefit from coaching, well, if I say to a coach, well, what problem does your client have? Well, they'll say, well, it depends. It depends who they are. It depends how engaged they are with the process. It depends on what's going on for them. It depends on whether or not they take their actions. And that's absolutely true if you're sitting on the delivery side of your business. If you're sitting on the delivery side of your business, then the answer to what does your client want, what outcome are they looking for, is based on the individual who is sitting in front of you at the time. On your creating the opportunities to do the delivery side of your business, it's still very client focused, but it's focused on a potential client who you have identified, who you know who they are, and you know what they're struggling with. Still client focused, still client centered. It's just focused and centered on one particular kind of client. Now, if you're sitting here and I say, what outcome does your client want? Quite reasonably, you can't tell me. If you're sitting here and I ask you what kind of outcome your potential client wants, then you absolutely should be able to tell me. It's really, really important that you know, because if you don't know, you can't market to them. You need to know who they are. You need to know sector, industry, profession. You need to know down to job title, and you need to know the thing that's keeping them awake at night, that's really, really affecting them, that working with you in coaching can help them to resolve. Now, let me share a graphic with you. This is my niche grid. And it's the easiest way that I've found to describe how niching works. If you imagine that the horizontals, the A, B, C, D, E, F, are topics around which we could coach. So things that we might be really interested in. So maybe A is overwhelm and anxiety. Maybe B is managing transitions into new roles, or managing a transition out of a role you've got into a new one, into choosing a new one, or all the different things that coaching can help with. And let's say that E is emerging leaders. If we choose this the what is the new leader who's been promoted because they're really good at doing the do, and now they've been promoted to lead other people to do the do, and they're feeling completely out of their depth, overwhelmed, they're not enjoying their job, and they just don't know what to do. So emerging leaders. Now, the verticals are separate industries, sectors, or professions. Now, this little bit of a niche grid is the tiniest little bit of a massive, massive grid for illustration purposes, because every sector, industry, or profession could be represented in this grid. So 1, for example, could be school teachers, 2 could be lawyers, 3 could be people in the military, 4 could be hospital medics, 5 could be pharmaceutical salespeople, or pharmaceuticals, let's say, people who work in the pharmaceutical industry. So we've said this is legal profession, and we've said this is emerging leader, and so that X is where our potential client sits. And so in that case, that X is an emerging leader in the legal profession. Why would I choose the legal profession when I could have chosen absolutely any profession? Because there are emerging leaders across every single sector. Because if you try to market to emerging leaders, full stop, how do you find them? Whereas if you have knowledge and experience of the legal profession, don't pick a sector, industry, or profession where you don't either have lived experience or have had a front row seat to the lives of people who are living that experience. Here, we know that they're emerging leaders in the legal profession. So what we know is what professional networking events they attend. We know what recruitment firms work with them. We know what conferences they attend. We know what publications they read. We know what sources they feel are credible, resources, should I say, that they feel are credible, like which websites, which publications. You know, we know where they are, and that means we can be there too. So, by the way, if you've got any questions at all on any of this, do please feel free to post your questions in the comments. And if you're kind of thinking, well, I don't want to post that question because it makes me look a bit daft, send me a DM. I am always happy to receive a DM from somebody who's got a question about how this whole client acquisition for coaches works. So we need to choose an industry, a sector, or a profession. Now, one of the places that I get a lot of pushback on this is particularly when somebody has crashed out of a career in a particular industry or sector and they work there their whole life. Now, the fear is, I left that for a reason and I do not want to go back there. Here's the thing. Marketing to somebody in that particular industry, profession, or sector is not the same as going back to work there. What it is you taking something positive from your knowledge and experience of that profession, industry, or sector, and using your knowledge of the way those people's lives work to be able to speak to them in your marketing. Now, a conversation that I had with somebody was that this woman worked in HR, had worked in HR. She was been really senior in HR. And when I suggested that perhaps she might want to think about HR in, I think it was manufacturing sector. I think it was, anyway, it doesn't matter. But she'd worked in HR in a very specific sector. And when I suggested that maybe she might want to consider that as her commercially viable niche, she said, oh, I don't want to work with people like that. And I understand, you know, she'd crashed out of it. She wasn't happy even thinking about going back to it. Number one, you're not going back to it. And number two, what assumptions are you making about people? Bearing in mind that those people that work in that sector, in that particular job function, are just people. What assumptions are you making about them that makes you go, I don't want to work with anybody in that sector because they're not nice people? You may have had a bad experience, but none of us should tar everybody in a particular sector with the same brush. And I do understand the resistance. I really do understand the resistance. But if you're smart, you won't resist. Because the reason that you want to market to a group of people whose lives you understand well is that the kinds of problems that coaching can help with often affect all areas of life. So if we look at our emerging leader in the legal profession, what we know is what they're struggling with. They're struggling with feeling, you know, with imposter syndrome, managing a team that used to be their peers and now are their direct reports. They're worried that their line manager thinks they're an idiot and is regretting having ever promoted them. And that's keeping them awake at night. And we know that when you've got a problem that's keeping you awake at night and gnawing at you, it affects your work, not only how you feel about your work, but also how you do your job. It affects your home life. It can affect your social life. It can affect your health, because for a start, you're not sleeping. It has an impact on all of our lives. And if the thing that you want to coach around has nothing whatsoever to do with work, you know, if for example, you're a health and wellness coach, you still need to know who they are. Because when you know who they are, you know where they are. And when you know who they are, and you understand the rhythm of their life, you know where the pinch points are in their year. You know where the ebbs and flows of their work life is, because even if the topic we want to coach around has nothing to do with work, we spend an awful lot of our time at work. And our work affects everything else that we do. I mean, you will have all been there where you absolutely hate your job, and in hating that job, it taints every other area of your life. So, a commercially viable niche for a coach is made up of a what and a who. And where those things cross, where that red X was, let me share this image again, where that red X is what I call the intersection. Now, if you're saying, oh, that's all very well, but it's different for me because, can I encourage you to go and get my latest book called The Intersection? Because it's there to help you break down the reasons that you're feeling such resistance.